Hi, my name's Sasha Mainsbridge. Welcome to my Mullumbimby home. For Sustainable House Day, I am registering my house as an example of a resilient home in the face of increased flooding risk. So behind me is my backyard, and beyond the trampoline, well beyond, is the Brunswick River. And on February 28th, 2022, the river rose and broke its banks, came into the backyard, and then inundated my home to about 15 centimetres throughout. But even with just that level of flooding, the result was that the kitchen was ripped out, the bathroom was ripped out, all the walls were cut to 1200 to half height, and we had to move out. So most of the region is still in the process of rebuilding. We moved back in 3 weeks ago after I took control of the rebuild and rebuilt the home to be as flood resilient as I could possibly manage. So we'll do a quick walkthrough and I'll show you what I did. Here we go. So the first thing that you notice when you walk into my home is probably the floor. So there used to be white tiles in here, and now we have polished concrete, which is actually much more comfortable on my feet than I thought it would be. It has a bit of a silky feel to it. The other thing you can probably notice straight away are the dado rails. So the bottom half of the walls have not been replaced with gyprock. There's a combination of Aquacheck, which is a waterproof gyprock product, and fibre cement sheet. So the external walls, the ones that border onto the back onto the bricks, they're all cement sheet, and all of these internal walls are the gyprock Aquacheck. So they were just cheaper and easier to install, and I've seen really good results in other people's homes with that product. The other thing you'll be noticing, I'm sure, are the really high skirting boards that we haven't painted yet. Now they're made from form ply, and they're 30 centimeters tall, so they're pretty tall, and behind them is actually a gap, so the wall doesn't go all the way to the floor. And the theory is that all of these form ply skirting boards can be unscrewed, taken off, and we can hose out the mud after the next flood and potentially put the form ply skirts back on. But that's the weakest link. So if the worst case scenario is that the form ply skirting boards get thrown out, then that's okay. I'm okay with that. The kitchens are a bit of a nightmare when it comes to flooding. A lot of the appliances were down low, so I've been able to move my oven up, but I've left my dishwasher down, so that's risky. I didn't go to the expense of putting in a dishwasher drawer, which would have been an upgrade. And I am going to put my fridge on some blocks so that it's also up at that sort of 30 centimeter height, so that will be improved. But the other, the main issue for kitchens is the cabinetry. Even expensive kitchens tend to be made by some type of chipboard that you can't see, and they fail badly in flood conditions. So this kitchen is sort of state-of-the-art, flood-proof, made from products called Tricoya and Stylex. So they are cabinetry materials that are specifically rated to be completely flood resilient, guaranteed. So I'm really happy with it. It was expensive, but it just means that as long as this house is standing, it can just be hosed out flood after flood. Even if you can't afford really expensive cabinetry, I think one of the fundamental changes that people really need to think about is the fact that traditionally kitchen cabinets actually sit directly, the bench top sits directly on the cabinets, and that's why if the cabinets are not flood proof and they fail, then you end up losing your bench top. But this kitchen is built, this is actually a steel frame. So the bench top is sitting on the steel frame. It is not sitting on the cabinets, and all the cabinets are completely removable, so that all you have to do under the sink is you will have to cut some of the PVC pipes in order to be able to pull that unit out. But that's really important in this house, being a brick veneer. The mud is going to come through the weep holes again, but once you've removed all of those cabinets, you'll be able to clean out that cavity. So the one thing that you can't see behind the walls is that the pine frame of this house has actually been painted. So the bottom couple of feet has actually been painted with a product called Crommelin Aquablock, and it is a specific paint designed to waterproof timbers. So when the floodwaters come through, if they do get in behind onto the frame, then the amount of moisture that is absorbed will be radically reduced. And it just means when you take off the skirting boards, leave them off, get the fans running, dehumidifiers going, that they should dry much, much faster. But you'll simply be living in the house with the skirting boards off for a length of time until, the frame has actually dried out. So you can see over in the corner there, what we're looking at is a power point that's been raised above the dado rail. So all of the power points in this house and the data access points are all up above the bottom half of the wall. Now that one obviously is pretty obvious, and that's what people complain about when they think about raising power points. I think if it really bothers you that much, potentially you could get a white cord that's like a power board, and it will disappear a bit more than having the black cord. Over here, there's another PowerPoint behind that Indian headdress. So, placement really matters and can really soften the impact of raising the PowerPoint. So in this room, you can see there's actually a PowerPoint in behind this shelving unit, which we actually just cut a hole out of the shelf for. So that's fine. And this one over here, it's pretty unobtrusive, and it's just not a big enough issue for me to even consider leaving the PowerPoints down low, because what happens when you flood, and if this house doesn't flood for a long time, the people who are living in it may not know how resilient the place is, so they may well just rip the bottom half of the walls off, and that won't be as big a tragedy as it could be if the power had been left down in the bottom half. Because the minute you take the bottom half of the walls off, if the power is there down in the bottom half, then you have to disable all of the electrics until such time as you've put the house back together. So this way, it'll maintain the electrical amenity. All of the doors inside the house, all of the wardrobe doors and the doors to the rooms, cupboard doors, every door got thrown out. So what I've done is find some creative solutions and also some affordable solutions. So I haven't chosen the super flood resilient option of putting all hardwood doors. It just felt to me that that's a lot of, there's a lot of resources there, a lot of timber to do that, and quite a serious expense. So I decided to go with hollow core doors again for the room doors. They're painted on every edge, so they will get away with a little bit of water, but the theory is that they're all removable. They've got lift off hinges, so all of those doors can be lifted off. And when it comes to the linen press, that's what you can see there. That's a sheet that I'm using as a curtain. And in this bedroom, again, they're flat sheets that I'm just using instead of wardrobe doors. Okay, so the final thing that I wanted to show you is the bathroom. So obviously what I've done here is I've rebuilt the area where the vanity had been sitting on the floor, and there's no built-in cabinetry there. So that little chest of drawers can simply be lifted, and that shelf is strong enough to place it on. Now, the other thing that's really important when it comes to bathrooms is to consider that if the floodwaters can get behind the waterproofing, then an insurer is going to want to rip it all out. And then you're going to be in a situation where you're waiting for trades, and it could take years like this time. So what we did with this house, it's hard to see it, is we have built this room with the shower and the bath, the room that's needed the waterproofing. We've actually built a fortress around that so that floodwaters cannot get under the waterproofing. So it won't need to be ripped out. It's that simple. So the floodwaters can literally come in the door, that's fine. So the flood water will come in and go over the tiles. The tiles have been laid with flood resilient grout and glues so that they can just be hosed off. And yeah, so there won't be pulling out this bathroom.